ABC 10 News at 4 starts now.
The circumstances we face offer no possibility of an ideal outcome or clean exit.
The city of San Diego is laying down a way out of the money-draining Ash Street deal. The purchase of 2 downtown buildings was supposed to save taxpayer millions, but it's done the opposite, and it could still cost more. ABC 10 News reporter Rachel Bianco is live downtown with how the city hopes to get out of this bad agreement that's currently under investigation. Rachel?
Hi, Kimberly. Mayor Todd Gloria says this will minimize the risk to taxpayers and the harm to taxpayers. And he says it will also allow the city to move forward. But not everyone is on board with this proposed settlement.
That there is no perfect outcome.
Mayor Todd Gloria announced during a press conference Monday the outcome that took 18 months to negotiate: a possible legal settlement on the 101 Ash Street building and Civic Center Plaza lease to loan deal. Real estate deals that city leaders now call a civic tragedy at taxpayer expense.
We must put anger aside and look at this rationally, assess the risks, and try and find a path forward.
Under the proposed settlement, Sistera Development will pay the city close to $7.5 million, which is the net profit received on 101 Ash, and give the property titles to the city. Buying out both leases will cost the city roughly $132 million. The mayor says the cost of cleaning up 101 Ash varies from $20 to $115 million.
There is a modest effort to encapsulate asbestos to a full-scale reimagining, a repositioning of the building.
Gloria was a council member when the deal was first negotiated in 2016. The city attorney's office was suing to void the leases, saying the real estate broker who negotiated the deals acted as a volunteer but received millions in unreported compensation. The mayor says settling will prevent years of litigation at taxpayer expense.
We are going to cease a business relationship with these entities. We are going to have asset ownership of those assets, and we'll have the opportunity to reposition them.
Former city attorney Mike Aguirre is involved in a corruption lawsuit against the city over the lease purchase agreement. He questions why the city is backing down now.
If you're afraid of litigation, why do you have one of the biggest law firms in the world representing you and have 4 of their lawyers charging the city?
Now, the deal does not prevent the city from suing the real estate broker or the possibility of criminal charges. The city council will discuss and vote on this deal on Monday. And we have just learned, though, that city attorney Mara Elliott is recommending that the council reject this proposal. Reporting live downtown, Rachel Bianco, ABC 10 News.
Potentially a big development. Thank you, Rachel. New information tonight in the case of a San Diego mom found dead in Tijuana and the hunt for her boyfriend. Her mother tells ABC 10 News reporter Michael Chen of the odd behavior that caused her to ban the boyfriend from her home.
In mid-January, Denise Sabian Hoskins says her daughter's boyfriend, known to her as Paul Phillips, showed up at her home in Northern California with her newborn granddaughter and without her daughter, Raquel.
He told us they got in an argument and he left and he was going to go back and get Raquel. He did the next day.
During the brief stay, all seemed good.
He was very attentive to Raquel. He loved that baby.
On the day they left, Sabian Hosking told Phillips she didn't have room to take in the couple and their child. Hours later,
shook my husband's hand. He said, "God bless you."
The three left, and Sabian Hosking got a text from Phillips telling them to F off.
Very disrespectful.
Which caused her to ban him from her home. Months later, Sabian Hosking received a text from Raquel saying she was going to Easter brunch. It was the last time Sabian Hosking heard from her daughter. On Easter Day, Televisa reports Raquel, Phillips, and their baby crossed into Tijuana. On May 31st, Tijuana police found Raquel dead, her remains decomposing in a cooler in her car.
All I keep thinking about is how I'm never going to be able to hug her again.
Paul Phillips, identified as Tyler Adams, was detained on June 15th following an Amber Alert for Raquel's missing daughter, Valentina, found safe in Rosarito the next day. The FBI says Adams was questioned by Mexican authorities before somehow being released from custody and crossing into San Diego. Agents say he is known to have many stolen identities. Sabian Hosking now making a plea for tips.
This guy thinks he can outsmart everybody. And honestly, I would like him to find out that he can't.
Michael Chen, ABC 10 News.
Sabian Hosking says the couple was together for about a year and a half. 7-month-old Valentina remains in protective custody in Mexico. A preliminary investigative report into the Uvalde Elementary School mass shooting is expected in the next month. The Texas House Investigative Committee is looking into what happened at Robb Elementary School last month when a gunman opened fire, killing 19 children and 2 adults. The police response to the shooting has been criticized. This video shows the Uvalde police chief arriving at the committee hearing today. School district and police officials have testified before the committee. Now to the growing fears the country could be heading into a recession with consumer prices at a 40-year high. Many economists say a recession does seem inevitable, but President Biden and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen say they expect the economy to stabilize. Everything from rent to groceries are up 12% at least from last year, with inflation at 8.6%.
I'm dipping in savings so that I can live.
It's been growing at a very rapid rate as the economy, as the labor market is recovered and we have reached full employment. It's natural now that we expect a transition to steady and stable growth.
Well, according to economists surveyed by Bloomberg, the odds of a U.S. recession in the next year are rising. The probability now at 30%, which is double the odds from just 3 months ago. And the temporary program that's allowed San Diego restaurants to create outdoor dining areas during the pandemic is coming to an end. Those restaurants will now need special permits, but as ABC 10 News reporter Madison Weil reports, not many have applied yet.
This parklet has been phenomenal for us. Obviously, we've got to increase our capacity.
Joey Busalacci is the owner of Barbusa in Little Italy. These temporary outdoor dining patios enabled many restaurants like his to stay afloat during the pandemic. But now some customers and restaurants say they'd love to make the parklets permanent.
Most of these people love to dine al fresco as well.
The city is planning to give restaurants that option. However, they'll now have to apply for special permits and make sure new, stricter regulations are being met.
We want to make sure that it's safe.
For example, restaurants can't build a permanent overhead structure in their parklet.
We don't want, for instance, heating sources to be close to umbrellas because that could spark a fire.
And for some, the price of a permit won't be cheap.
We've estimated ours is going to cost about $35,000 for 2 years.
It's all based on square footage. The deadline to apply is next month. Even though you can see parklets everywhere in San Diego, the city tells us only 25 restaurants have submitted an application so far. Busalacci was one of the first to apply. He added it's likely he'll have to modify parts of their patio. But despite the cost and construction, he says it'll be worth it in the long run.
They're doing a great job in continuing to help these small businesses.
Madison Weil, ABC 10 News.
Restaurants that don't apply for this new permit through the city must stop their outdoor dining operations by July 13th. And now to coronavirus. We can expect COVID vaccinations for the youngest kids to ramp up tomorrow once doctors' offices open up after the Juneteenth holiday. Over the weekend, the CDC recommended both Moderna and Pfizer vaccines for children ages 6 months to 5 years old. States have already put in orders for the more than 18 million American children now eligible. In Ohio, some parents already booked appointments.
We have a 4-year-old son, and we've been living quite a sheltered life over the last 2 years, trying to keep him safe. So this will give us a little bit of breathing room.
Families have 2 options. Pfizer's 3-shot course administered over 11 weeks. There's also Moderna's 2-shot regimen given 1 month apart. In addition to doctors' offices, the shot should be available at drugstores and county health departments. Still to come today, millions of travelers left stranded over the holiday weekend. The recipe for disaster that led to thousands of flights being canceled. Plus, the person accused of killing an elderly man outside a local animal clinic faced a judge for the first time. The punishment he could face.
Juneteenth is being observed today as a federal holiday. The actual date was yesterday, June 19th, and marks the historic day in 1865 when word reached Galveston, Texas, that slavery had been abolished. Texas was the last in the Confederacy to get that news. Now, we want to take you to a coastal community of Galveston now and show you this, a painting by Earl Jones Sampson. He's known as the Juneteenth artist. He pointed out the birds representing freedom and how the shackles are deteriorating but still present. Sampson says that symbolizes the work that still needs to be done to reach equality for everyone. Now, this painting is a centerpiece of Juneteenth celebrations in Galveston.
It means a lot to me because, this is a message that needs to be told. And the more people that see it and understand what it's saying, then the message will grow and grow and grow, and we'll all, be the better for it.
The painting is on display at the NIA Cultural Center in downtown Galveston. Well, topping the newsfeed starting today, transgender women are officially banned from competing in women's elite swimming events. The International Swimming Federation will only permit swimmers who transition before age 12 to compete in women's events. FINA says it's not feasible for people who have transitioned after the start of puberty to compete without having an advantage. To mark World Refugee Day, today more than 100 major companies have joined a coalition for refugees in the U.S. They include Burger King, Delta, and Marriott. They're pledging to reduce barriers for refugees to get jobs through hiring and training. Well, gas prices are a little bit cheaper today. The national average now sits below $5 a gallon at $4.98. President Biden says today a decision on a federal gas tax holiday could come by the end of the week. The tax is currently at 18.4 cents per gallon.
Back here in California, a state assembly committee was formed to investigate the rising gas prices in our state. Meantime, local gas prices are finally dropping just a smidge. The average price went down by a half cent to $6.34 a gallon. This is the fifth day in a row the average price dropped. It hit a record high last Wednesday at $6.37. AAA says the recent drops in price stem from a plunge of nearly 60 cents on the LA wholesale gas market, and that was caused by a volatile week for the U.S. economy.
Sat on the plane for 4 hours. 4 hours before they took us back to the terminal.
Yikes. Millions of Americans were left stranded and frustrated after over 3,200 flights were canceled this weekend. Friday marked the busiest air travel day so far this year, according to the TSA. More people also traveled on Juneteenth and Father's Day, but a combination of bad weather, staff shortages, and infrastructure left airlines struggling to keep up. Major airlines, including Delta and Southwest, are canceling more flights over the next 2 months. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says airlines need to review their flight schedules and do more to soften the impact of cancellations.
This 10 News Pinpoint Weather Report is sponsored by Anderson Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Nobody wows clients like we do.
No weather cancellations out of San Diego, at least on our part. Weathercaster Melissa Masiha is joining us now. A gorgeous Monday, Melissa.
Yeah, really nice and hard to believe summer. It's already here. Yeah, the official start of summer is tomorrow. But it is beautiful as we take a live look here at Del Mar right now, looking over the San Diego County Fair. The fair is closed today, but a nice view as we take a look at the coast and start a brand new week. Beautiful Weather Watchers picture here. This is from Jim Grant over in La Jolla. He said parking was already tough to find at 10 o'clock this morning. I know with the heat that we're experiencing, some people wanting to head to the coast. Actually, a lot of people, because this morning, the coast was already packed. Our temperatures here across the county, we are in the low 80s right now in Julian, near 90 in Warner Springs. Pretty warm in the inland valleys, near 90 right now in Ramona, mid 80s there in Poway. And you can see why so many people are heading to the coast, because it's a cool spot. We're going to be in the low 70s, or we are in the low 70s right now. Our 24-hour temperature change. So if it feels warmer, it is, because we are anywhere between 4 to 10 degrees warmer compared to this time yesterday. Our other weather headlines here. We are going to see the patchy clouds and that coastal fog roll back in tonight as low pressure develops. And then we have a big change, a chance of showers and thunderstorms. The best chance here is Wednesday and Thursday, and the best chance is in the eastern portion of our county. So right now, look at our satellite and radar. We are mostly clear. And as we look ahead to our future, activated the futurecast, you see by Wednesday we could see some activity mostly in our mountains heading out east to the deserts. We can't rule it out both along the coast and inland, although that is a slimmer chance. As this develops over the next couple of days, of course, the ABC 10 News Pinpoint Weather Team, we will keep you posted. Hour by hour here along the coastline, we are going to drop down into the mid-60s while many of you are hopefully sleeping. In our inland valleys, we're going to see that same trend down into the mid-60s by the 1 a.m. hour. And then looking ahead to tomorrow, inland, once again, it is going to be pretty warm here into the upper 80s as we ring in summer. 83 forecasted in Julian, mostly into the 70s along our coastline. Your 7-day forecast. So by Wednesday, we are going to see more clouds roll back in. Again, we'll be in the upper 70s there. And then by this coming weekend, we'll be into the mid 70s. Our inland valleys near 90 in some spots. We are forecasting a few 90s by Wednesday into Thursday and Friday. So it is going to get pretty toasty here as we continue on into the week, the overnights in the 60s. Heading over into our mountains again, that's where we could see some of the activity there as far as the thunderstorms. So definitely want to keep that in mind if that's your destination over the next couple of days. 80s over the next few days in our deserts. Hey, it is summer. It's going to be very hot. We are looking at 110 by Thursday and then even warmer as we look ahead to the weekend. Kim?
Wow. Thank you, Melissa. And when we come back, growing safety concerns over a street racing takeover trend in downtown. We speak to neighbors about the recent chaos, plus what police are now doing about it.
Skycam Views, sponsored by Carlsbad Solar.
The growing wildfire risk has businesses trying to adapt. Elizabeth Ruiz shows us the steps they're taking to be ready.
This area was once a green haven. Here in Northern California, vineyards were surrounded by lush forest. But in 2020, the glass fire decimated Napa County.
It looked like a volcano kind of erupting, shooting embers all over our property, flames 150 feet high.
Was the glass fire anything you had ever imagined you guys would face here?
No. Never like this.
For winery owner Alan Viadair, it was a wake-up call.
I got on the phone with the fire department, the local fire department, and said, what do I need to do to sign up?
Alan became a certified firefighter and has made many changes to his property to prepare for future blazes.
Each of the buildings have a dedicated pump that's gas powered, so I don't have to rely on electricity or any of the, the city water. I can be out of power and still move that around and spray water wherever I need to do.
A lesson learned from the power being turned off in California during mega fires in the past.
We have 30,000 gallons right here.
He even has little mobile water tanks.
A little spray for little small spot fires if you need to go hike somewhere.
And they're building a fire-resistant deck with concrete foam blocks that can withstand heat over 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit for an hour. With a consistent year-round fire threat, these are examples of what businesses feel they have no choice but to do, taking fire mitigation efforts into their own hands.
Fire is definitely at the forefront of everybody's mind right now. I mean, it's a buzzword, but we're all worried about it and we all want to do something about it.
But Alan didn't have to do it entirely on his own. The person he called for help after the glass fire was firefighter Eric Hernandez.
Preparedness is what we preach on a daily basis.
Eric is part of a consulting program that educates people in the area how to defend their property from mega fires. There are similar programs in states like Colorado, Montana, and Texas.
We come out and do an assessment of the property. We look at the structures, we look at addressing access, fire protection systems, infrastructure, water storage tanks, pump houses, and then we also look at their defensible space. So not only do we talk about what the requirements are for defensible space, but we also make additional recommendations that will benefit the property owner and their structures.
Clearing bushes and trees, replacing walkways with gravel, and cutting the grass multiple times a year are all a part of Alan's plan to make sure the property his family has owned since the 80s is safe moving forward.
Failing to prepare is preparing to fail, so we're ready for anything these days.
In Napa County, California, I'm Elizabeth Ruiz reporting.
Still to come today, a member of the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board is being let go from her seat. Why, she says she was supposed to serve a full term but isn't being given the chance.
You're watching ABC 10 News at 4.
Street racing takeovers have been plaguing San Diego streets for years now. One happened late at night near Market Street over the weekend. ABC 10 News reporter Sierra Encinas spoke to residents who all seem to have one question: where are police? She has that answer for us tonight.
It's the second time drivers took over the intersection on Market Street.
There's a bunch of kids in cars, and they block off this intersection down here by G and 22nd or over on Market Street, and they light off a bunch of fireworks, and they're just doing donuts in the intersection.
A resident on the street who wants to remain anonymous tells ABC 10 News she was woken up by the commotion.
It's really loud, really disturbing, really unsafe. And this is the second time it's happened.
Skid marks and firework wrappers are among the mess the rowdy drivers left behind. The resident says the first time the police did show up, but the second time she and other residents tell 10 News they didn't see them.
Because what people see on television is they see the street takeover and they expect dozens of police cars, hundreds of officers showing up, and that's just not realistic in a lot of cases. Sometimes it is, but not in every case.
San Diego police say there were officers at the event Saturday night and they're investigating.
So even though those vehicles may not get stopped or towed immediately at those events, we will go after them with a court order or a warrant later on to go and seize those vehicles and then pursue criminal charges against the drivers.
San Diego police say they're working with their partners at the Sheriff's Department and CHP to curb the emerging trend. This year, San Diego police say they've pursued more than 50 court orders and seized more than 30 vehicles. As for the drivers who took over Market Street over the weekend, residents tell them it's just not safe.
I mean, you shouldn't do that regardless, but like this is an extremely busy intersection, not to mention this intersection right here. I've lived here for 2 years and I see accidents happen all the time.
Sierra Encinas, ABC 10 News.
San Diego police say officers in plain clothes could have been at these events. They are always looking for information to curb the trend and ask the community to reach out with any tips they may have. A memorial is growing outside a veterinary clinic in Rolando where an elderly man was killed last week. The man accused in the murder was in court today and pleaded not guilty. The judge asked us not to show you 37-year-old Patrick O'Brien's face. Investigators say 88-year-old Clark Kelly caught O'Brien burglarizing the clinic on El Cajon Boulevard and tried to stop him. When police arrived, Kelly had several injuries, including head injuries, and later died at the hospital. Right now, O'Brien is being held without bail. He is expected back in court July 1st. He could face 25 years to life in prison if convicted. And happening tomorrow, Poway's mayor will propose a citywide tip line for residents to report safety concerns. Mayor Steve Voss will ask support at the city council meeting tomorrow night. The proposed tip line is called Poway Alert. The mayor's office says that it would be accessible 24/7 for people to call in concerns about acts of violence. Tip line messages would be forwarded immediately to the Sheriff's Department. If approved, the tip line would be activated immediately for a trial period through the end of the year. The mayor's office says people should still call 911 for emergencies. It's unclear how the tip line would be managed. Some local community groups are speaking out as a member of the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board is set to be released from her seat. Activists say the board needs someone with her diverse background. ABC 10 News reporter Nate Holmes spoke with Buki Dominigos, who says she was never offered a full term, but that other board members were.
Buki Domingos was let go of her seat on the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board. She says that she was appointed to fill an existing term that only had 8 months left, but she was assured that she would be able to fill a full 3-year term. Now, community members and representatives from the Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego, North County Equity and Justice, and more stood alongside Domingos this morning. She says at the beginning of the month, she received a phone call stating that her time would come to an end on June 30th. The representative she spoke with on the phone, she says stated CLRB had decided to go with someone else. The Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board, or CLRB, is designed to investigate complaints of misconduct, death, and other incidents relating to our jails and law enforcement. Domingo says she was the only Black woman to serve on CLRB, she was the only immigrant, and she was the only member to have a medical background.
I have 22 years as a healthcare provider internationally and locally, and they said this is something they had never had on the CLRB before. So they needed somebody who would be able to understand the diagnosis, understand, what the medical terminologies were as a board member.
Now, the state auditor released a report on our San Diego County jails back in February. It detailed the disturbing number of in-custody deaths from 2006 to 2020. The audit also focused on a CLRB. The report says the board failed to provide effective oversight. Domingos says following the audit, she helped implement change on the board, like helping start and co-chair CLRB's ad hoc racial disparity committee. Now, Domingos says she was appointed to the position by County Supervisor Tara Lawson-Raymer. We have reached out to her office as well as the county to get comment on Domingo's release. At the County Administration Building, Nate Holmes, ABC 10 News.
And now to Washington, where the January 6th committee is preparing for its 4th public hearing tomorrow. The committee plans to reveal even more evidence it says shows former President Trump pressuring state officials to overturn the result of the 2020 election. This comes as a new ABC News and Ipsos poll gives a preliminary look at how the public is responding to the hearings. It found a majority of Americans surveyed say former President Trump should face criminal charges for his role in the Capitol attack. Trump has dismissed the committee's investigation. Meantime, a change of plans for former Vice President Mike Pence. He will not meet with the GOP group on Capitol Hill this week. CNN reports Pence rescheduled tomorrow's meeting over a scheduling conflict. The meeting will now take place in July. This also means Pence will not be on Capitol Hill at the same time as the House Select Committee holding public hearings about the U.S. Capitol riots.
Well, gun sales are rising in the U.S., and the fastest growing group of owners is women of color. According to the National Shooting Sports Foundation, in the first quarter of 2021, 90% of gun retailers reported an uptick of Black customers, including an 87% increase among Black women. One woman owns a self-defense company and says domestic abuse, sex trafficking, and other violence against women are just a few of the reasons she does what she does.
Absolutely nothing will level the playing field between a 120-pound woman and a 300-pound man like a gun.
She stresses it's not enough to have a permit. You also have to study the laws in your state and practice so you feel comfortable using a gun. People with disabilities face double the average rate of poverty, which is leaving concerns that they're being left out of conversations about the effects of our current housing crisis. Tomorrow, the solutions some communities are finding to make sure people with disabilities can get into affordable housing. But still to come today, solving violent crimes can be challenging. It can be even more difficult when it comes to victims who identify as transgender.
The neglect to include that they were wearing feminine clothing at the time, I'm sure contributed to the identification taking, 40 years.
How one nonprofit is looking at cold cases differently to get answers for families. Solving crimes can be very tough. Beyond gathering evidence, just getting witnesses to come forward can be a process. But when it comes to victims who identify as transgender, solving violent crime cases can be even more difficult. As Chris Stewart shows us, people can be reluctant to come forward, making unique efforts to solve these cases all the more important.
From the moment I stepped into Anthony Redgrave's office.
So I've got a couple here that I did the forensic art for. This is the most recent one.
It became clear what it takes to do his work is something most will never understand.
Harris County Doe, they were found in 2019.
While you may have heard terms like John Doe or Jane Doe, remains of people who cannot be identified. Here at his nonprofit, the Trans Doe Task Force, many of the cases they focus on are where unidentified remains may be someone who is transgender. In some cases, it can be difficult for authorities. If the remains of someone who identified as a woman were found, but police identified them as male based on skeletal remains, it could send law enforcement in the wrong direction.
People will automatically assume, oh, the police are here to protect us and they'll know what to do. But the fact of the matter is they don't know everything about every single community.
Take the case known as the Pillar Point Doe, a person found stabbed to death in 1983, not far from San Francisco.
This individual was assigned male and wearing feminine coded clothing and was found within hours of death on the beach.
Although they had female characteristics, the medical examiner listed the body as that of a male.
The neglect to include that they were wearing feminine clothing